Now, Dave Chappelle was my GOAT, okay? David Jebediah Chappelle. He was the GOAT. He was. Loved a lot of his comedy and his humor. And yet, for the past, 5-6 years now, he has not stopped trying to tackle big trans, okay? His latest special is not as bad as some of his other specials, in my opinion. Some of his other, recent specials, I mean. Obviously, Killing Him Softly clears everything that he's ever done in the past 6 years, right? However, at least he's, getting marginally better at making jokes and not simply just saying trans people are awful and demons. At least he's moved beyond doing attack helicopter memes. However, he hasn't moved far beyond it. At least he's trying to make a joke now, instead of just repeating something that you hear from Steven Crowder. But even then, it still falls short of what his normal material looks like. The issue, however, is that when you are so preoccupied with dunking on trans people and you just cannot give up on this because you think it's an honorable and just cause because trans people are killing comedy or something or whatever you've cooked up in your brain, whatever you've gotten yourself to believe, okay? It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to make jokes. Here, I'll show you this.
Do something else! Do something else! That's it! That's all we want! Do something else! Holy shit!
And I've talked about this quite a bit, okay? The number one problem here with Dave Chappelle is that he's no longer looking for laughter. He's looking for applause. That is the lowest form of comedy. Looking for applause over laughter is the lowest form of comedy. You are the Hannah Gadsby of being transphobic. That's it. And if I saw this kind of humor from some up-and-comer, if I saw this kind of humor from the likes of, let's say, a Matt Rife, that's expected. If I saw it from someone who has consistently been unfunny like Bill Maher, that's expected. Dave Chappelle, on the other hand, is supposed to be up there with the GOATs of our generation, like Bill Burr. So you're okay with him dunking on every other group? Dunking on every other group is not what comedy is about, okay? There is a lot. I said this earlier, but I will repeat myself for the sake of this segment, for those of you who just came in. Comedy comes from understanding a lot about a particular in-group. Oftentimes, that's the reason why a white person making jokes about black people can come across kind of racist, out of touch, and not funny, whereas Dave Chappelle making jokes about black culture and black people is going to hit way harder, okay? One is a part of the in-group and is embedded, understands it, sees the humanity of it, and can make jokes about the different phenomena that they have experienced. A cis person can make jokes about trans people. I'm a cis person. I make trans jokes all the time, okay? The difference, however, is that it's not simply me looking from the outside and going, aren't they just weird? Look at how weird they are. Look at how weird and gross these trans people are. I don't really get it. That's not exactly humor in that moment. That's simply you going, you being kind of a bully, really. It's also you just looking at it from the outside and not really wanting to understand. That's the major difference. That's why when his jokes on black culture or white culture, white people, they hit pretty hard, whereas his jokes on trans people just basically stay at the hackiest, lowest common denominator. Specifically, his bit about Norm Macdonald is what I want to talk about. I believe this is it.
And the only thing that got me out of that space was a comedian friend of mine, the late, great Norm Macdonald. In the movie, it's called Man on the Moon. I didn't know any of this. And in this movie, Jim Carrey was playing another comedian I admired, the late, great Andy Kaufman. And I had to pretend it was Andy Kaufman all afternoon. And it was clearly Jim Carrey. I could look at him and I could see it was Jim Carrey. Anyway, I say all that to say, that's how trans people make me feel.
So that's a joke. It's crafted as a joke. It's got the structure of a joke. Dave Chappelle is a GOAT of comedy after all. At least it has the crafting of the making of a joke. However, it's very lowest common denominator because the punchline still is trans people are weird and gross and they're faking it. And, I'm sick and tired of acting like they're not, right? The punchline in and of itself for this massive crafted story from a profoundly successful storyteller is still just a really fucking shitty lowest common denominator meme. You're saying it can only be funny if it's from someone that empathizes? No, I'm not saying that you can only be funny if you empathize with said group. I'm saying that empathy oftentimes helps in developing a better understanding of the group that you are joking about. Because if you don't understand the group that you're joking about, you're just simply looking at it from the outside and going, aren't they fucking weird? They're just weird. That's the difference. Norm Macdonald to Jim Carrey to Andy Kaufman, all of that has the makings of a decent joke. It has the structure, it has the writing, everything is sound. The punchline, however, is soft. It's predictable and it's soft. Like you built it up. You built it up. It's supposed to be the best part of it. The rule of threes, right? If the last piece of that joke falls flat, then you kind of crafted that for no reason. Now, what is really interesting about this in particular with Norm Macdonald is that he invokes Norm Macdonald's name, which is quite odd when he's making a joke about trans people being fake and phony and being weird and gross. Because Norm Macdonald himself was very much alive and doing comedy at a time when people were talking about trans identity in public, right? It was a part of the subject matter. And Norm Macdonald was interviewed. This was a great bit from said interview of Norm Macdonald that I'm going to read now. Terrible tribute to Norm, says Vincent, who touched on this exact type of joke in an interview. I think the ambivalence had more to do with jokes you've made about transgender people. Now, remember, a lot of people who fucking post Norm Macdonald on Twitter, Norm Avatar Twitter accounts are oftentimes the dumbest right-wingers you've ever seen. And plenty of people will just go, yeah, you just don't get it. Norm Macdonald was a super reactionary guy. Now, just like with every artist from every different industry, you're not going to like all their work, right? Norm Macdonald has a lot of hits. Some misses, in my opinion, doesn't really matter, right? But here's what he had to say about a joke that he cut out of his special. Yeah, the other thing was a joke about Caitlyn Jenner, which, as a matter of fact, was a joke I deliberately left out of the Netflix special, Norm says. It wasn't much of a joke, really, and it's weird when you have to explain jokes that aren't that funny. The joke was about how everyone was saying Caitlyn Jenner is beautiful, but she's not really beautiful. In that joke, I went to great lengths to say you should love Caitlyn Jenner and accept her, but you don't have to pretend she's beautiful. There's no reason to do that. That was the entire point of the joke, he says, which is still a better joke than anything that Dave Chappelle has crafted about trans people, right? Now, having said that, he still considered that to be not a good enough joke. He said it was pretty weak. That was the entire point of the joke. It was pretty weak. So I won't do those jokes anymore, which is fine, because the reason I didn't do the joke on the special is because I came to an understanding that other people came to much sooner than I did, which is what the interviewer asks. He says, which is that a lot of people are idiots. You don't want to have a joke be misunderstood and then someone goes and beats up a trans person. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make jokes about trans people at all. The difference is Norm in this regard was saying, at least that, or was recognizing that he didn't fully grasp the concept, but he did grasp the secondary impact of his words, that it plays a role in normalizing transphobic sentiment, okay? And because he didn't have a good enough joke about a trans woman in that regard, he just dropped it because he thought, why do this? So when I'm actually criticizing Dave Chappelle, I'm not criticizing him from the perspective of like, oh, he's transphobic and I'm triggered. Oh, it makes me so mad. I, after all, am a cisgender dude. I'm a white guy, a cishet white guy. None of that impacts me directly, right? Like I can hear someone be transphobic and recognize the harm in that, but it's not directly harming me. It's not affecting me personally. I have the capacity to hear it and go, yeah, that's transphobic. When I criticize Dave Chappelle, it's not from the framework that he is transphobic. He is. We all understand that. There's no reason to defend it. I don't know why some people try to. It's like, who are you trying to appeal to? Liberals? Do you care? Do you care about liberals like being like, no, Dave Chappelle has to be perceived as funny, right? I'm not a comedian. I'm an appreciator of comedy, and I am a big fan of Dave Chappelle, right? So what I'm trying to say is, as a big fan of Dave Chappelle, when I criticize Dave Chappelle, it's not on the basis of like, oh, he's being so rude. It's on the basis that it's hacky. And I think that's the worst thing you can do as a comedian.